All right. The USS Kidd has been in Baton Rouge, Louisiana at dock for over 40 years and sitting in a cradle. And it's gotten to the point now where she needs to move. And why is that? Because, well, most of the time it's out of the water. So we've got a little bit of a discussion tonight. We're going to be talking about how they got the Kidd moving and on its way to dry dock. So tonight, as usual, I've got Shane Stevenson from the Buffalo Naval Park, Buffalo and Erie County Naval and Military Park. I've got John Epp, curator at the USS Slater, and Connor Kilgore from the Transportation Museum of Thunder Bay. But additionally, we've got, love him or hate him, Tim Nesmith from the USS Kidd, superintendent of the USS Kidd.
Love him.
Mark Stevenson, director of the USS Kidd. So thanks for joining us tonight, guys. We're gonna jump right into it. And so will she move? All right. In these pictures right here, you can see the Kidd is normally, well, maybe not dry, but high out of the water. How high did the water have to get in order for you guys to consider even moving the Kidd?
Well, we figured that we would need 36 feet of river water levels to freely float her out. This would give clearance for her sonar dome. If you look in that picture right there, the second cutout in the cradle, the sonar dome extends down, and then there's our propellers and rudders back aft that stick below the baseline, which is the keel line. And we haven't seen 36 feet in a couple of years. We had a dry year last year with the drought, and it looked like this year was trending the same, according to the weather reports we were reading. We weren't even going to break 30 feet, it looked like. But we needed to go, and so we had to figure it out.
Well, I mean, you can figure it out, but if you don't have the water, you're not going anywhere.
We had to go. we had this beautiful alignment of some money from the state, political support, but even more worrisome were a number of hull breaches that were increasing from last year to this year, and we were mitigating that flooding with pumps, but there was no guarantee that we would be able to stay ahead of these hull breaches when we did get enough river level to float off the cradle. And in fact, when we did get enough water level to float off the cradle, one of the hull breaches opened up dramatically and caused a significant amount of new flooding. We had to react quickly to stay ahead of it.
Well, so when the water level was rising, you guys actually had to check and see what kind of clearance you had between the hull and the cradle, correct? As a matter of fact, that's what this photo is right here. What can you tell us about that?
Tim, you want to take this?
Yeah, so our shipyard hired a salvage team, TNT Salvage, to come and help evaluate moving our ballast around to make sure, what we could lighten and not affect stability. And while they were doing that, they also brought in Budwine. I forget the last part.
Budwine and Associates.
Budwine and Associates, which is a diving team. That's the guys you see right here. And they started looking at the clearances and basically physically confirming, visually confirming what TNT was determining with all the computer models and everything based off of the ship's data and what they had observed in the tanks for the ballast and everything. So right there, they're going through and basically checking the sonar dome. The clearance is there. At one point, there was questions about, should we cut the sonar dome off in order to get out? They're looking at the rudder. They're looking at the props. And eventually, what they ended up doing was, after they checked all the clearances and everything, they went through to the areas that we had marked off where on the hull where the leaks were, the general frames. And apparently there was enough clearance for them to get in there and put a little sealant on the outside to help better mitigate what TNT had already done on the inside. So that helped a lot of our leaks right there. Didn't fully stop them, but dropped them down to where the pumps weren't running all the time. They weren't cycling as fast as they had been. You know, every once in a while it would get high enough to trip a float and a float switch and activate it, and dump it, and then it'd shut down and be quiet again.
Yeah, the amazing thing about all of this was that we had hired Thomas C. Marine Constructors as a shipyard to conduct this work. And they became the general authority on getting the ship out of the cradle to the shipyard. We saw that the river levels were not going to accommodate and that they weren't going to be able to freely float out. So Thomas C. brought in TNT Salvage to work this issue. And I've got to tell you that when they first showed up, we rolled out the blueprints of the ship and the cradle, and then also looked at the bathythermic data of the river bottom behind the ship, where we were going to pull her out in order to get her into the deeper channel of the Mississippi River. Their first impressions were, this is not going to work. It's just not going to happen. And then it became a very tense battle, watching the marine forecast every day, and them working the problem through a computer model. They used a standard industry model called GHS model, which is the same model that we used years ago when we were determining how to predict how Titanic flooded and sank. They put all this data, built this model, and it just wasn't giving them the clearance that they needed. But we talked about cutting off the sonar dome. We talked about maybe cutting the props off, maybe cutting the rudder off. There's all kinds of options that we were looking at. But the real turning point was when the divers went down there and they found more clearance between the ship and the cradle, what we call the shoulders, they're uprights on either side of the keel blocks. They found more clearance than the blueprints had indicated. In other words, the elevation data that we got from the blueprints was off a few feet in our favor. So at that point, we saw a brief uptick in water based on flooding from the Ohio River Valley. The storms they had up there that flooded Pittsburgh, that's the kind of water that we needed to swell the Mississippi River. It gave us a few feet, and the TNT Salvage was able to use their model to determine that we could get out of the river, but we still had an issue with the shallow waters behind us, and that's when they made the request to shave 4 feet off the shore, and that request was approved because we needed to get her.
I've got a picture of the rudder, and before I pull that up, I just want to let everyone know we are talking to Tim Nesmith and Park Stevenson from the USS Kidd Veterans Museum in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They are getting the Kidd on its way to dry dock. Check out their YouTube channel, USS Kidd Veterans Museum. They've got a lot of video of the Kidd being pulled away from its cradle. Check out their website, usskidd.com, if you want to support their efforts. So this is what we're going to be talking about tonight. And you had mentioned the rudder. This is a picture that they had posted on their Facebook page. Check out their Facebook page, search for USS Kidd Veterans Museum, and it'll come right up. So what kind of a decision has to be made, or what kind of discussion has to take place in order to decide that you're going to cut 4 feet off of a rudder?
The shipyard rep came to me and said the salvage guy was recommending to cut 4 feet off the rudder, and I said, go for it. That was it.
No hesitation.
Time was critical. We were approaching, basically at that time, we were looking at a 1-day window of opportunity. In other words, the river was getting up to a certain level. They weren't going to be ready to take it out before Wednesday, Thursday was our window. We weren't ready on Wednesday. We had Thursday that we had to go. And then the forecast had the river dropping off sharply after Thursday. So it was, I mean, literally, it's a matter of priorities. Do you want to get your ship out this year and get her into dry dock while you have the money and the political support? And we had already lightened the ship. We had spent months using up staff time, pulling all the historical artifacts off the ship, basically leaving it relatively bare. If we weren't going to get out, we were going to be stuck with a stripped ship that still had a leaking hull, and with no guarantee that some of those hull breaches wouldn't get bigger and over the course of the year. We spent another year driving out of the river and the ship's weight pressing down on the cradle, which is what was causing the damage. I know that on Facebook we get a lot of people who assume that they're having to get the hull repaired because it's all rusty and everything. It actually is not. Kidd is out of the water for half of the year every year, and then she's in fresh water the other half of the year. We've done soundings of her hull plating and have not seen much in the way of thinning of the metal in 40 years in the Mississippi River in Baton Rouge. But the hull breaches were being caused by the ship going up and down for 40 years and hitting this cradle. Also, in recent years, the river's been lower for longer, so the ship has been spending more time out of the water than her design really would allow. And she was settling onto the cradle. The shoulders, the uprights, were never meant to support her weight. They were meant to keep her from tilting one way or the other. They were just a stabilization feature. But over time, the ship's weight was settling in, and they were pushing up through the hull. That's why we had to get out. And for all the people who say, well, you know, when the river's down, you should fix the hull right there. No, because we have to lift the ship to get at those trouble areas. We couldn't get them because she literally sat on them when she was high and dry. So no, we had to go to the shipyard.
Let's move on to I guess the best way to look at getting the Kidd out of its cradle is a video that you guys have posted on your YouTube channel. I strongly recommend anyone check it out. Just search for the USS Kidd Veterans Museum in YouTube and it'll come right up. Got, let's see, some still photos from that video. And I kind of wanted to find out, or maybe kind of have you guys give us a play-by-play. This is from the start of the video. So it's in a position where you've got to tug alongside and you're, I guess, are you trying to move it backwards out of the cradle? You're basically trying to get it to back up out of the cradle away from those uprights?
Correct. And what they did was sever the collar.
Hold on a second. Where were you personally, Tim, when this happened?
I was moving all over the ship, taking pictures. But McKinney Salvage is the boats there that you see working in the crane barge. They had helped us the day before on Wednesday remove the gangway, and basically they got a long handled torch and cut the bolts that held the collars together around the mooring dolphin pilings. And once they cut those bolts, then the crane is hooked onto the collar and it just lifts that outer collar part. And what was really neat to see was there was enough of the collar fitting around the post that even after they had all 4 collars broken loose and moved away, the part of the collar that was still attached to Kidd was holding her, and the river current was holding her against those posts. And then they got this little bitty aluminum boat with bumpers on the front, and they just eased right up to the bow, and they pushed. And it's like this thing is just churning water, and it's like, what are they doing? How is this going to work? But it was just like, you can hit those little ball bearings together, and eventually you got all of them going.
Mm-hmm.
And that little bitty boat pushed that big destroyer just far enough away from the pilot. Now she's free, and she starts drifting back with the tugs, push boats. It was impressive to see, and we've got video that I took looking down on all this happening that'll be going up in the next few days on the YouTube channel.
You'll have it on the kids' YouTube channel and Facebook as well, or
yeah, we'll advertise it on Facebook. People can see it advertised and just follow the link to YouTube.
So, Parks, where were you when all this was going on?
I'm up there on the levee, watching with a couple of the original crew that brought the ship to Baton Rouge back in 1982, and they were seeing the ship move for the first time in 42 years, and also some of my staff. The Coast Guard had restricted riders. Tim Nesmith and Nate Bergeron were the only two that rode. They were specifically requested by the Coast Guard because of their familiarity with the ship. But this was not a pleasure cruise. This was a working transit, and only the salvage crew was allowed aboard. So yeah, I got to watch from the shore, and it was so amazing because the entire thing, for all of the months of worry and how difficult this was going to be, cutting the rudder off, and as a desperate measure, all of this. On that day, everything was flawless, and it was a testament to all of the planning that went into this. TNT Salvage was on this from the day they came in. And another thing that I want to mention is that we had only received the state's approval to enter into contract with the shipyard that we had selected months before, because bureaucracy. Only on April 5th, and then we pulled out on April 25th. 20 days to get, and of course the shipyard couldn't bring TNT Salvage under contract until they got the contract. So all of this had to come together within 20 days and resulted in its flawless execution. I have nothing but the highest praise for Thomas C., TNT Salvage, McKinney Salvage, and then Crosby Tugs, who would later take the ship down the river up into Homa. Just professionals, and we couldn't have done it without that crew.
When the ship gets back to this point, clear of the what do you call the vertical supports, the twin vertical supports?
Dolphins.
What are they called? Dolphins. They are
mooring dolphins.
Oh, well, okay. So when it gets clear of the dolphins, I mean, what are you thinking at this point? Is there any going back? Like if you guys discovered a problem, could you go back and tie up again, or did you just have to go?
No, we had to go. The only safe route at this point, in this picture right here, is into deeper water. And again, we had a salvage crew aboard who was monitoring the pumps, the water level inside the ship. If they had signaled any kind of emergency, we had a reserve of pumps, high capacity pumps, that could have been applied to deal with a larger influx of water. I mean, we didn't just have a primary defense line. We had a secondary and tertiary with a lot of reserve capability in case the flooding became worse than we had anticipated. I had confidence. I had absolute confidence in our team, and I just wanted her out of that cradle and into deeper water, and I knew she'd be fine.
Tim, what were you thinking when you start? Well, when you start to see the ship drift away from the dolphins, I mean, what's going through your mind at this point?
please, for the love of God, don't scrape that skin against the outer supports. Oren Bordelon was kind of shadowing me as we moved around, and at some point, I was busy filming and looking around and just kind of monitoring, and Andy Barron with TNT apparently got a report. I'm not sure who he got it from, but basically he said the sonar dome is free and clear of the cradle. And at that point, that's what McKinney was waiting for, because at that point they started angling for deeper water. They were able to move the bow and not worry about scraping anything. And as soon as Oren told me the sonar dome's clear, he was like, really excited. He was really into it. It's fun to watch him. At that point, it was like, okay, we're free to maneuver. I feel a little bit better. She's not going to cut herself open on the cradle getting out.
So you're kind of talking about you're talking about at this position. Sorry, Shane, but you're talking about like when it was angled away.
Correct.
Okay. Go ahead, Shane. What was your question?
Yeah, sorry about that. So that's what I was wondering. So you had divers underneath, in the water underneath the ship as you began to pull her away from the dolphins?
No, there were no divers in the water when we moved. They knew basically what frame the sonar dome was on, and they knew where, in relation to the dolphins, the last upright was on the sides of the cradle. And once we passed that point, they knew they could maneuver. So they had memorized the layout of the cradle and the dolphins and the framing of the ship and everything.
And that's where that GHS model come into play. They had it down to a science. I'm telling you. I want to make a mention about the divers here. Zero visibility in this water. This is Mississippi mud river, the river of mud, they say. Those divers worked in absolute zero visibility. And people say, well, why don't you just put a big light down there? Well, no, it's not that easy. You have particulates suspended in the water. It's like driving on a very foggy night in your car and you turn your high beams on. What's going to happen? You're just going to get reflected back. You're going to have even worse visibility than before. All the work the divers did was by feel, by touch. We didn't even know if the sonar transducers were still inside the sonar dome. And we only learned that they were when a diver stuck his hand in an opening, a corrosion hole in the sonar dome, and felt the hard transducers about a couple of inches inside the dome. I do want to mention that both the rudder and the sonar dome on Kidd are post-war. The rudder is an enlarged rudder over her World War II original rudder, and the sonar dome is, again, post-war. It's actually located farther aft than where Kidd's original World War II sonar was located. And it was entirely external to the hull. Whereas a World War II sonar transducers were retractable into the hull, the post-war one was mounted entirely external to the hull. So this also helped in the decision. If they had to cut the sonar dome, fine. If they had to cut the rudder, fine. It'll be fixed in shipyard, and we'll actually take it back to more of a World War II configuration. And by the way, we are going to cut the sonar dome off when we get into Tennessee, so that we never have to deal with it again. And we'll look at the possibility of building a replica World War II sonar apparatus where it belongs. But that's still in the future and on.
Yeah, Tim and I had long conversations about the sonar dome and the Cold War domes versus the World War II retractable transducer dome. And I did not realize, though, as Parks, you had just said, that because with the Sullivans, they moved ours about 50 feet back from that original position, but I didn't realize yours was also moved as well.
I want to be
I owe you an apology, because in our discussions, I was saying that our sonar dome is where the old World War II one was. And we actually have our sonar dome exactly where yours is, under the ice machine room.
Right.
But what I was looking at from the inside of the ship was the remnants of the World War II sonar dome on the inside of the hull, which was throwing me off. So I apologize.
No, no apology. This is why we do this. This is because we sit there and talk and we compare photos and blueprints and like the underwater room, right, was where it would have been, and now it's again under the icebox reefer area. Fabulous discussion. So no apology necessary.
No, it's funny because with the dome there, we assumed it was in the same position. And when TNT Salvage was building the model, they said, "What do you got between frames 50 and 55?" That's where I'm showing the sonar dome. Well, that's our reefer. Oh, we've got some quality in our reefer that we didn't know where it came from. We still don't know if it's come from the sonar dome. But now all of a sudden, that might explain some of the unexplained flooding that we had. We'll find out for sure when the ship is right.
Shane Stevenson from the Buffalo Naval Park, of course, they've got the USS the Sullivans there right next to the Little Rock. Okay, first of all, Shane, Buffalo River compared to
Old Man River, there isn't much of a comparison. But I mean, it's the we are prone to seiches and different forces. We don't have to wait for the river to run. But getting a seiche with a lot of the water coming from Cleveland and Toledo, it actually goes up the river. So sometimes you see the course of the river natural, like towards Lake, and then sometimes it's flowing upriver, which creates its own issues. We have a lot of silt buildup. So our dry docking is much more complicated than others that we have seen, including the Kidds. I know everyone has complications, of course, but we have to move the Little Rock, we have to move the Croaker, we have to move our mooring towers, we have to dredge all the silt, and then we can.
So when you hear what the Kidd had to go through in order to get out, your situation, does it make you kind of nervous?
Yes, because it's just more. There's more. The scope of work is a little bit larger. There's more steps to our scope of work to get her moved in quantity, but that doesn't mean in complexity. Each of these have their own challenges that they have. The Parks and Tim and the crew have successfully managed, which we hope to as well. It's just the scope of work is different and a few more steps probably, but.
Yeah, Shane, something that you said in an earlier video, and this is before all this happened, really struck me. You had mentioned that you had monitored the silt buildup on the pylons in the river, and you've noticed that in recent years, the Buffalo River average levels had declined. And I would say we were experiencing the same thing in the Mississippi River too. And in recent years, the average levels have declined, which really put the worry on us of getting out of the cradle. And of course, with you, the danger of impacting the bottom.
Yes. I'm sorry, there was a little breakup there. But our water levels, I believe in general, are lowering, but that would be, we always go, as I think everyone does, by sea level. So we are at above sea level. So we are at always like 52, 53 feet above sea level. But the fluctuations within that are, just as little as a half an inch up to a full inch. So it seems though there's a general decline in just the daily river water that's coming. And then we have a storm, and then it swells, multiple feet. So if I read that right, and then because of the curve of the river, we're at a curve, that's where all the silt, of course, collects, is in the corners of the river flow, and just the natural course of the Buffalo River. So if you're standing at our sidewalk, if you look down, typically that would be 18 feet to the riverbed, but in some spots it's only 7 feet because there's 10 feet of silt buildup and things like that. So the croaker, the very bow of the croaker, is probably only 2 or 3 feet away from that silt buildup because it's right at that corner again to the bend where it leads out to Lake Erie.
Yeah, that's that, and you go back to the overall shot of Kidd in her area. No, looking down on her.
All right.
The fact that she's in the cradle. That's good. See that long green roofed causeway behind us?
Oh yeah.
To a riverboat casino. That forms a little corner there. Of course, the river water is flowing southward, which is away from the camera. So you can see that little corner back there is a natural cul-de-sac for river sediment down the river in that area, which is what presented us, as it turned out, with our biggest challenge.
I just want to let everyone know, if you're just tuning in, it's another episode of Museum Ship Mafia tonight. And this evening, with the Kidd making it out of its cradle and on its way to dry dock, we've got Tim Nesmith, Superintendent, and Park Stevenson, Executive Director of the USS Kidd, joining us. Check out their Facebook page. Search for USS Kidd Veterans Museum, and you're going to see all kinds of information about the ship getting out of its cradle and on its way. So when you look at these pictures, you see the Kidd making its way, and you think I got a kick out of this. You think it's going to head downriver, but it doesn't. It actually, am I right? It goes backwards under the bridge.
Drifted backwards.
Does the ship ever get to go forward?
Oh yeah, we went forward going downstream when we left for the shipyard, but in this instance, it was easier for us to drift backwards through that closest span that you see right there under the bridge than to move forward away from where we were at, turn the ship in the current against the current of the river to face downstream, and then go downstream, and then turn again against the current to go face upstream, and then move to the dock that we were going to. Which
hold that picture right there. Go back one. Okay, in that picture there, you see the Kidd, and beyond it, you see these cranes. We did not start the tow. I'm sorry. We did not start the dead ship tow on the day we pulled her out of the cradle. We still had some final applications of splash zone to be done to the hull. And we also had the final Coast Guard inspections and their approval for the tow to go through. So the Kidd was taken out of her cradle and then backed downstream on the other side of the I-10 bridge there to that yard where you see the large crane at. That's McKinney Salvage Docks, where she was taken. So she only just went a mile or two downstream to McKinney Docks, where she sat for a few days getting her final preps for the tow. Once the tow began, then they did pull her out of the McKinney dock and turned her around in the channel, and then she proceeded for the next 36 or 48 hours, 320-mile tow. She was facing forward.
And I've got some pictures of the tow. Yeah, I knew the ship eventually went forwards, but I was just kind of surprised. It seemed like it went on this backwards journey underneath the bridge. And so, Tim, you're on board the whole time. Did the water level or pump activity or combination of both, did that ever become an issue?
It actually never fluctuated. That was one of the things I kept listening for and sticking close to Andy Barron, because he was getting reports. Everywhere we had a leak, we had salvage guys sitting there monitoring. And at one point, I asked Andy, I said, "Any change in the intake?" And he's like, "Not a single bit." And that made my heart feel good. That was one of the things I was wondering, because the ship gets out in the current. You got more flow against the hull. The movement of the ship, can kind of torque a little bit, and I was just afraid of something opening up and getting worse, and it never did. So It went. I can't imagine it going any smoother than it did coming out of the cradle and going down to McKinney. And McKinney threaded that needle. We had a distance of, Parks, correct me if I'm wrong, 150 extra feet from the stern of the ship to the
We only had 150 feet of clearance from that causeway that you saw in that previous picture, and when the bow would clear from the dolphins of the aftmost cradle. So yeah, you can see how close it is. That tug's prop wash is churning up the water next to the causeway.
Yeah.
It really looks like it's got plenty of room here. I looked at it, I measured it, and I expressed my concern to Annie McKinney, the head guy there at McKinney Salvage, and I said, it's only 150 feet. That's like threading a needle. And he just says, not a problem. We got it. And he was that way the entire time.
Before we move on, Connor, John, you guys got any questions?
Yeah. It's not so much about the move itself, but what was the community's interaction that you saw as the ship was being moved and going down the river? Like, how many people were watching? Did you see people along the side of the river as you went downstream? Or
that's a great question. Yeah. Did you have any recreational boats getting in the way, anything like that at all?
No, let me say that, again, the Coast Guard was very concerned about this tow. They wanted no complications. They were aware of what we were faced with getting out of the cradle. They were aware of the condition of the vessel, and they did not want any more complications than necessary. So this was not a public event. We did not we did not send out a press release. We actually took measures to kind of not let the word get out, because we did not want to attract attention. And we did have local law enforcement with their waterborne craft out in the channel. I don't see it in this picture, but there's a sheriff's boat out there ready to keep away any pleasure boaters who saw it. So we literally stole away from Baton Rouge. There you'll see one of the sheriff boats.
Yeah, I think I see it in the background, right behind the kid, that little tiny gray and black.
Yes,
boat.
Yeah, that's one of the sheriff's boats. So once the kids started moving, people that were on the levee did stop to watch, and a small little crowd grew. And one of the TV stations did get a whiff and came out with a camera to record our departure. But we kept this one under wraps for a couple of reasons. One being safety, primarily being safety. And also when we left McKinney's dock. Now, once the ship was gone, everybody woke up and said, where did the kid go? And we did not also publicize that she was down at McKinney's dock, because they are truly a working dock. They don't have the security or the area to accommodate crowds. And so their location was kind of kept a secret so that they didn't get inundated with people blasting through their yard. And then our departure from the McKinney Pier was less about security and more taking advantage of a break in the weather. In order to transit the Gulf, it had been determined that it would be a no-go above Sea State 3. We had had a pretty violent storm front pass through just previously. We were supposed to be at McKinney's docks. It was estimated 5 to 10 days, but I think it was only 3 days that we were there when they said, okay, the storm front has passed. It's forecast to be smooth in the Gulf. Let's go now. And so we got underway, not secretively, but because we left quicker. And that decision was a last minute decision, literally made the night before that they would go. So again, safety was paramount. The condition of the ship was in everyone's mind. And everybody was focused not on the publicity of the event, but rather on the safety of the event.
Yeah, but hold on a second. Isn't that a missed opportunity? I mean, I understand the logistics and the safety. I mean, you make great points, but isn't that a missed opportunity for the museum, missed publicity for the museum?
It is. I'm not going to lie. It is. I would like to have broadcast this to the heavens, but there were a number of things at play, some of which I won't discuss here. Let's just say that it was a missed opportunity, and now we're going to be scrambling, fundraising wise, to raise money that we might have gotten if this had been a much more publicized event.
There's a question that I want to hit you with a little later. John, I think, was texting Tim about it also. But before we get to that, I want to pull up. Is this map generally correct on the path? So obviously the Kidd has to go down the Mississippi past New Orleans. And then is this correct? It's got to cross the Gulf in order to get to, excuse me, in order to get to that channel leading to Houma?
That's it. I mean,
yeah, actually, map cuts off a little bit, but we went a little bit further south from where that dotted line is.
They didn't go through Port Fourchon, but yeah.
No. I mean, I wouldn't expect that to be the case. But I mean, it's literally got to go way down the Mississippi and then cut across the Gulf in order to get to Houma. Shane, did you have a question?
No. I was saying hi to Hulk Hogan's tights.
Oh, and that's important.
In the most Vulcan way possible.
Yeah.
I've got a question.
Go ahead.
So obviously planning for this is many, many years, but when did it really finally kick into gear, like serious planning to do this?
The first leak started in September of 2019. And we investigated. We tried to find out. Tim Rizzuto was talking with me on the phone quite a bit, kind of talking me off the ledge because I'm like, oh, I'm a failure. My ship has leaks, and everything that I told him, like, what am I missing? Where's the source? And God bless him, he sat there and listened to me, and finally was like, you've gone through everything that I can think of. You will find it eventually. And so we did find it eventually. And I want to say it was the first or second board meeting for our director at the time, Roseanne Geip. And we were reporting on it, and a couple of people on the board were like, so what do we do about this? And it's like, we've got to go to dry dock. So probably the first couple of months, January maybe of 2020, was when, everybody was kind of hunkering down and committing and saying, okay, we've got to do this. And then gradually it's been a slow burn, moving forward. I think last year was at Parks while we were on the paint barge was when you were testifying in front of the Senate and the House to get the money.
Yeah. Oh, really? That's what it took. Our fundraising is not the best in the world, and we've got to take steps to change that. We are self-sufficient on a normal basis. We get by. I won't say we don't have lots of money. It's just the way it is. And the crew there has been very good at maintaining the ship. But for this, we needed a shot in the arm. And that required political commitment. Luckily, in 2022, there was 2022, 2023. When you get into government fiscal years, the years come. How the money comes about, it's a little shaky. But in the last legislative session, we had some political support who went to bat with us and approved, not just approved a request that I put in as soon as I was hired there. I mean, I was basically hired into the position to ensure that this happened. Not that I did anything really, but all the people we talked about did the actual move and everything. But I put in a request, and we had political support from one of the local state senators who had been in the Navy himself, and he actually got us more money than we requested. It's not a lot, but it was enough to get us in the shipyard to get the basic hull repair done. And that same year, Louisiana experienced a budget surplus. And so, a combination, like I said, a combination of factors, the stars aligned, and we got the money that we needed to make this overhaul a reality. So, again, once the money was voted in the, what was it, like June, July timeframe of 2023, then it gets apportioned in these different buckets, because normally when the state allocates money, it goes toward projects like buildings, normal things that a state like Louisiana would do. They've never had a situation, or they're not used to a situation, where money that they voted on to apportion would all be used up in one fiscal year. Usually they'll vote in the money and then it'll get spread out over a number of years, which takes some of the sting out of some of the money they voted for. But in our case, we needed it. We needed to spend it within a year because we wanted it gone more than a year. So there was a lot of work behind the scenes by a committee that was established on our state commission that oversees us. And we had the good fortune to have an old lawyer from D.C. who originally lived in Louisiana, returned to Louisiana with his wife, and he worked his magic and got the state to put the money to our use in this year. And so again, these are all forces why we had to go, because that's such a fragile coalition. If we didn't go, it could all fall apart at any time. So it really kicked into gear the latter half of last year when we went into a shipyard selection process, which was overseen by the state of Louisiana. Their division of administration has an office called Facilities Planning and Control, and they worked with us. Luckily, they also had an interest in the ship as well, and they worked with us to help select a shipyard. And once the shipyard was selected, they started working, even though they weren't under contract yet. A lot of legal stuff. We hired a lawyer who was very experienced with shipyards, and these guys on the legal side, they hammered out different interim agreements. The shipyard moved forward because they didn't want to be caught behind the eight ball, and it took months, like I said, until the first week of May before we cleared all the bureaucratic hurdles to actually put the shipyard under contract. And on April 5th, that's when everything took off at light speed. Once the shipyard was under contract, they hit go. They were already prepared for this. They sent out their purchase orders from their different vendors to get them going, including TNT Salvage and Budwine Associate Divers and everybody else that we used to Crosby Tugs to get them to write the tow plan for the Coast Guard to approve. And it went lightning speed like that. Again, 20 days. They're just unimaginable that all this came together and resulted in such a smooth operation.
I want to remind everybody that it's another episode of Museum Ship Mafia tonight. We've got Tim Nesmith and Park Stevenson joining us to talk about the removal of the Kidd from its cradle and getting it down the Mississippi River. I've got pictures of the tow, which I think are pretty cool. But before I get to that, if those of you watching tonight, if you could let us know where you're watching from, if it's my YouTube channel, History X, if it's the Buffalo Naval Parks YouTube channel, the USS Slater, or tonight as their guests, or our special guest, the USS Kidd, their YouTube channel. Just throw a quick note in the comments and let us know where you're watching from. Also, I want to say thanks to new members supporting us, Rob at Rocky Mountain Life Prospecting. They just joined tonight along with Robert. Thanks for supporting Museum Ship Mafia. I really appreciate it, guys. And let's see. So like I said, I've got some pictures of the tow, and I'm going to go back to the map.
Actually, I was going to ask if you could go back to the map for a second to answer a question up in the comments. Matt had asked about a back way, and yes, there is a back way through the Intercoastal Canal that cuts from New Orleans across that section right there, pretty much following Highway 90 almost, and gets you to Houma. And the reason we didn't go in there is because Kidd has too deep of a draft to go through those canals, and all the bridges and the power lines that cross those canals, she's got too high of a freeboard. Her mast would have hit them. So the only option for us really was to go down into the Gulf and go around. And somebody also asked in the comments about how fast we got up to, and I'm going to take great pleasure in saying that we outstripped USS Texas when she moved out of dry dock and pier side, and we outstripped New Jersey going up the Delaware River. We got up to, I believe I had heard 10.5, but Parks, I think you said we got 11
and a half knots.
11 and a half knots. So we are the fastest museum ship, not just the destroyer, but the fastest museum ship underway in 2024 so far.
Well, the fastest museum ship, not under her own power. I think.
Not under her own power.
Well, that's a good point. I wonder.
One of the Facebook comments I got one time was, "What do you think 41 knot Arleigh Burke would think of this?" And I replied that I think 11.5 knots is pretty respectable with the engines not even turning.
And remind us. I think in the description for tonight's broadcast, I think I mentioned it was a couple hundred miles, but that's wrong. What's the distance to get it to Houma?
Approximately 320 miles.
320 miles. And I think the Cod, when it went to dry dock, I think that had to go 90 miles. The Texas only had to go, across to Galveston. That wasn't very far. I think you guys definitely hold the distance record.
Either us or probably Ingham. Ingham came from Key West up to St. Pete's. I'm not sure how long that would be.
Well, I mean, it depends on how far you go. This is not the longest trip the Kidd has taken as a museum ship. She was pulled out of Philadelphia Navy Yard and brought all the way down the East Coast, around the tip of Florida, across the Gulf, and up the Mississippi River to Baton Rouge back in 1982.
Mm-hmm.
We have to give her kudos for that. But on the map here, that last leg going straight up into Houma, that's called the Houma Navigation Canal. And it was cut specifically, it's a straight line, very tightly controlled canal. And it goes, it's cut through the what do you call it, the water limit, whatever, bayous in Louisiana. There's a little town there called Duloc. And there's a crossing there. And I don't know if you have a picture of this, but as Kidd came up to that crossing in Duloc, a bald eagle landed on one of the posts next to the canal and sat there and watched as Kidd passed through.
I think you had that posted on your, I think it's Parks Explorations Facebook page. I think I saw. Yeah,
I did it on my page. I did it on X. I did it.
I don't have that picture. I wish I did. That was great.
It's the most American thing you've ever seen. I mean, Tim likes to. One of the things that Tim always told me when I got there was that God loves a kid. A lot of things seem to happen right when the kid needs it most. That bald eagle though told me that not just God but America loves a kid. Okay, that's my patriotic moment.
Talking about distances.
Go ahead.
I think we're still batting around 3 different dry docks. One of them would be in Toledo, and I think Toledo is about 330 miles away from Buffalo as well. But we would not have that navigational. There are a lot of bends in that river that you can see before you hit the straight shot up. So this would. Obviously, we'd be hugging Lake Erie and going past Erie and Cleveland. Maybe we could hitch a ride on whatever that Cedar
Point.
Yeah, Cedar Point.
Yeah.
But yeah, we would be about if Toledo was where we were going, it would be about 330 miles, I think.
Have you figured out, Shane? Have you figured out your draft for the Sullivans? Their total draft?
Our tug draft?
Your total draft. In other words, including the lowest protrusions like the propellers and rudders.
Well, our rudder and props are removed. Our sonar dome is removed.
Okay, so you just got the baseline then.
Yeah, it would be what is it, 27? Jeez.
Oh no. So you probably see this is one thing that we grappled with. Blueprints. We've got the blueprints in Kidd in various configurations: 1943, 1945, 1963. The problem is, as a museum ship, she's been altered. Her
Right.
You've got a design waterline, but we didn't know exactly how Kidd was loaded out, what her true draft was. We had the enlarged rudder, we had the larger propellers put on post-war, all like that, and all that had to be factored in. We came up with 16 feet total to include the rudder and propellers.
Oh.
They extended 4 feet down below the molded baseline, so that means you probably are close to 12.5 feet of draft on the Sullivans.
Yeah.
If I were to guess.
Yeah, I with 3 vessels, I always try to keep 27 is for the Little Rock. So roughly around there for the Little Rock. But
Right.
yeah, I think we've always so we always use the lowest. If people say, if we're standing pier side, we'll say 18 or 19. But now with everything cut off, that would be the number that we would probably be closer to that we should be using. And as we get closer to dry dock, that would be measured more accurately. But
yeah, so the way that I settled on the draft, well, obviously I looked at the blueprints and saw what they had to say, but to get the realistic draft of the ship, I used the actual draft marks, and then compared that to the latest docking plan. I did have a docking plan for Kidd, dated 1963. I don't know if you have a docking plan for the Sullivans, but you take your draft marks and compare it to the docking plan, and that should give you your draft.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, we do have blueprints, digital blueprints of docking plans. So,
yeah, look for the docking plan. That was the key. That tells you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's take a look at some of these towing photos. I thought they were pretty interesting. And well, here, first of all, let's remind everybody, it's got to go a long way. It's got to go a very, very long way. So the whole time it's under tow. I don't know who's getting these shots, but they're pretty amazing.
They came from a whole bunch of different people.
This obviously came from Crosby Integrity, which was the main towing vessel.
Yeah, well, and that's going to lead me to a question. But before I do, go ahead, Shane. What were we going to ask?
I'm sorry. I was just seeing that night shot. I know in one of your videos, Tim, you were saying that you didn't. I don't know if you knew yet if you'd be going 24 hours a day or you'd be. Did you do 24 hours a day tow just straight?
As soon as we left Baton Rouge, she was in constant motion until we got to home.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
What sort of clearance did you have with the mast and the bridge?
Not even close to those bridges. I couldn't measure it, but yeah, the tankers and the freighters that we were passing far dwarfed us as far as height freeboard. So
yeah, we had calculated the height of the mast with the air search radar to be 89 feet, and so checking that against the bridge clearances, we cleared it on the main route. Another reason why we not only did we not have we had too deep a draft for the intercoastal waterway, but if we had gone that way, and we did look at that in the very beginning before we determined the true draft, we were looking at having to cut the mast down, which I was really against that, because Kidd was saved in the mothball fleet because she was one of the few destroyers, if not the only Fletcher, at the Philadelphia Navy Yard that had a World War II pole-type mast. A lot of the other Fletchers or ships had been that they could have selected from had been modernized with a tripod mast. but she was selected from her pole mast, and I did not want to be the guy responsible for cutting down that iconic piece of equipment on the ship. So, little story there.
Let's see. Someone asked a question similar to the one that I was going to ask. Okay, so All American Travel's asked, can someone talk about the port list? Is there a port list? And then to add on to that question, when you look at all of the towing photos, the ship, the Kidd, is always, it looks like looks like either the rudder is turned to starboard, or it looks like the Kidd is always tugging on the tow line from its port bow. So is there a port list, and is there a reason why it always seems like it's tugging from its port bow?
She did have a port list. We have had since before the flooding began, a little bit of a 2-degree port list because of the way that the ballast was shifted around at one point in the mid 2000s. And TNT, when they began working in the tanks and shifting ballast and everything to lighten the ship, they actually got her back to an even keel. And then McKinney came up and we lifted that huge long gangway off of her starboard stern, and we got a 2-degree list again. So the gangway weighs quite a bit. So yeah, even getting her back to an even keel with the reballasting, that gangway has quite a weight on her starboard side. So yeah, it didn't account for the gangway. And plus, you can not really see it in this photo, but the remains of those docking collars also add a little bit of weight on the port side. The starboard tendency to go starboard on the tow line. I noticed that right off the bat. The rudder is straight, so all the Texas people, calm down. But yeah, she tended to go starboard a little bit, not enough that it caused any problems for the tug captain. He said that she was one of the easiest tows that he's ever had. And said she was just straight and true. You know, he corrected a little bit for that starboard tendency. Not sure why she was going to starboard, but and he didn't offer any explanation for why he thought it was. The salvage company didn't mention it, but yeah, she would go to starboard just a little bit, but not enough that it affected anything.
Once once it was go time, and once you started towing, like you said a few moments ago, it was nonstop. Were you? I mean, this picture's crazy. There's no stopping, even in heavy fog like this.
This fog, believe it or not, was right down at the mouth of the river, and that's where all the cold water coming down from your lawn in Minnesota ends up hitting that warm Gulf water, and so the mouth of the river is always really, really foggy. That's probably about 5:30, 6 a.m. in the morning, right about the time that I woke up and came out on deck, and it was that dark and foggy. They had slowed down quite a bit at that point, and at one point we came to a complete stop and basically sat, I want to say, for about an hour until things started clearing up and we could see a little bit. The winds kicked up and started blowing the fog away. But yeah, they did stop at one point, and I forgot about that. They did stop at one point for the fog at the mouth of the river.
You had spent your whole time on the ship overnight. I mean, I didn't know you were on board the whole time.
Yeah, there was talk at one point about us getting on and off, living on the tug, and then going and checking, checking the ship, checking the leaks and everything, and talking between TNT and Crosby, and I would assume also the Coast Guard. It was decided, okay, everything's stable enough to stay on the ship. And so, yeah, we never left the ship once we got underway. What
did you eat?
Oh, I like Bart said, it happened kind of fast. It's like, it's Monday. We're going tomorrow. Okay, so yeah, I went to I went to Walmart and bought a cooler that could keep stuff cold for 3 days, and I made ham sandwiches and peanut butter sandwiches, and got dried mango and trail mix and stuff like that. And the guys from TNT were even more decked out than I was. My biggest thing that I was concerned about wasn't eating and drinking. It was the fact that I was 50-50 in my excursions out into blue water, green water, with puking. And so I loaded up on some Dramamine. And when I got up that morning in all the fog, and I was told we were about an hour away from exiting the river, I took a dose of Dramamine, and everything worked out fine. I slept most of the day out at sea. Andy saw two of us just really fighting, staying on our feet, but nodding off. And he's like, go to bed. Everything's fine. And so I slept for about 6 hours through the morning, late morning, and got up about 2:30 in the afternoon. Everything was fine. I had a hell of a Coke headache. I didn't have any caffeine because I was afraid of puking it back up. But I woke up just in time for a great afternoon and great sunsets and everything.
Was the movement of the ship, was it a rocking side to side, or was it more a bow to stern, kind of like a traversing swells kind of a movement?
I noticed more of a port to starboard, side to side roll, but and I filmed some of it on the clinometer in the midships passage. We had the worst while I was awake was about 2 degrees. I think we may have gotten up to 3 degrees, maybe in the morning right after we got out of the river. Kind of more turbulence where the river's pushing out against the ocean. But by the time I got up, it was calmer than when I went to sleep.
John, Shane, Connor, any questions, last minute questions before we let these guys go?
Not really.
How long are you going to be in dry dock?
Oh.
How much is it going to cost?
The answer to your question is it's open-ended. The money that we got is we have a longer list of items to do in the shipyard than to have money for. We'll get the basic hull repair done, but there's a lot more that we'd like to have done to the ship while we have her in the shipyard. This is a once in a generation overhaul period for us. I know that most ships get into dry dock. I know Slater, for instance, goes into dry dock more often. But having to go through this, we're never going to go through this evolution again in my lifetime. And this is also something I pitch to our political supporters. It's not a rusty old bucket. It's a money pit. She's in really good shape, and she needs this one-time fix, and then I won't bug them for money again for 40 to 60 years. So we're going to be doing fundraising to try and raise more money. And more money we raise, more the shipyard can do. We are waiting our turn for dry dock. Kidd is sitting in a temporary berth at the moment. She is not scheduled to go into dry dock until August. So they're going to perform some prep work on her, some hazardous material abatement, get rid of lead paint and encapsulated asbestos, and preparing the ship for the dry dock. We're going to pull the 40 millimeter guns off of her, and we're putting them on a truck and sending them to USS Texas warehouse in Houston, because those guys are the experts on fixing 40 millimeters, having now restored so many of their own. We've got whaleboats to pull off that need restoration. We've got searchlights to pull off, trying to get them working again. Trying to get one of them working with the carbon arc light again. And just a host of other things, but again, depending on our fundraising. If we have some time, we can't return the ship to her berth until the water levels rise again next spring. So basically a year from now. The current work schedule, the contract work schedule, has about 8 months of work to be done on the ship. Like I said, if we fundraise and get more work, that could extend. But if she's done in the yard and she can't go back to Baton Rouge, we're going to explore some other opportunities, like maybe high up in New Orleans, close to the World War II Museum, and run tours for the people of New Orleans.
Right.
So we'll see. There's a lot of ifs in the future, but we're going to be gone for about. The ship's going to be gone for about.
And like you said, it's not technically going into dry dock until August.
Correct.
So it's. And is there any concern having it sit dockside away from the museum, or is it in? I'm assuming you feel it's in good hands.
The shipyard has given me their absolute assurance that they've got it. And we provide assistance to homeowners on request. Tim and Nate are going to relocate down to the home once they get into some of the actual restoration work on the ship. A little bit of quality control, but again, the guys in the shipyard know their business. They're aware of the condition that the ship's in, and they're just as dedicated to the ship as we are. They're not going to let it go to it. So, yeah, we have to have good trust in them.
Yeah, this is a good question. What's the best way to donate to support the dry docking?
Ken, I think you're muted.
Oh, sorry about that. I was muted. Thank you. Yeah, I love the name of this comment, Lunar Weasel. Thanks, Connor, for reading that out. Tim Parks, what's the best way for anyone that wants to support the kids' effort in dry dock to donate?
Easiest thing is go to the website, USSKid.com. You click on the option Support Our Mission with that little red bar over at the top left. Support Our Mission or Contribute. You can click on Contribute as well. And then when that page pulls up, there's a donate button right at the top. And we will take every dead president that you want to throw at us.
And everything that is donated is going to ship work. We're going to pursue fundraising for our building while we're away. There's a lot we got to do. We have a building too, and that's where all of our exhibits are. And while the ship's away, we're going to concentrate on the museum building. The museum is going to try and stay open while its star attraction is away. We've got a plan to put new exhibits in there, a life aboard a destroyer. We're going to have a very extensive kamikaze exhibit, since kamikazes were one threat to the Fletcher-class destroyers. And a home front, World War II home front, people that were left behind. And also a tribute to the last stand of the tin can sailors, the Battle off Samar. You probably would have figured that since I was so involved with the USS Johnston, but we're going to bring that to Baton Rouge. That's not where the donations coming through our website are going to go through. Everything coming to the website is going directly into ship's work.
All right. To check out the website again, USSKid.com. I also encourage you to check out the YouTube channel. Search for USS Kidd Veterans Museum in the search bar. And you've probably heard this said a million times by me, but one of the simplest yet most effective ways to support a museum ship is to simply watch their content, watch their videos, hit like, definitely hit subscribe, and throw your support that way. Of course, money is also a huge benefit to them. So again, website, USSKid.com. All right, guys. Well, thanks for giving us the play-by-play on the kids' journey out of the cradle. That was something else. And
Incredible.
yeah, we definitely appreciate it, especially when you see images like, oh yeah. Who took the drone footage?
That was a young man by the name of, and I'm going to mangle his last name. I apologize, Hunter Svetanix. He is the grandson of the owner of Johnson Marine, which back in 2020, 2021 did the very first soundings of the hull and kind of determined, okay, the problem spots or the touch points. The rest of the hull looks fairly good, and that kind of gave us kind of a good feeling of knowing, okay, we're zeroing in on the problem now. And so Hunter and Johnson Marine have stayed in touch with us, and we've kind of just collected a hodgepodge of interesting individuals around us that have some background. Like Hunter does drone footage, and then a young man who was a location manager, Brandon Mayer, who was with us on Greyhound, lives in town. He was interested in doing a documentary on the kid or helping in some way. And one of our employees, Molly Bollinger, has a degree in this sort of stuff. And she's joined with them. And then back in January, when I just joined in the chat on your January broadcast, I was on board doing duty with a little company out of Monroe, Louisiana, up in North Louisiana, that was filming. Their sound guys, Sam and Chase. I can't remember their company name, but they expressed interest in helping out as well. Parks was talking with them quite extensively at one point when I came up one afternoon, and he's like, "Tim's going to be a character," and I'm like, "What? What are y'all talking about?" And these guys have just all come together, and they're filming and interviewing. And Molly was chasing the ship. That's our latest video that's up on YouTube. She and three of our staff members were chasing the ship all night long until basically the roads ran out and they couldn't go any further down the Mississippi. So we're going to have a nice documentary before it's all done.
Yeah, we really have an intent to document this entire restoration process, because how often do you get to document the restoration process of an 80-year-old warship? I can guarantee you it's going to be a Netflix, award winner or anything, but we're going to do our best to document.
Well, Tim Nesmith, Superintendent of the USS Kidd, Mark Stevenson, Executive Director of the USS Kidd, thanks for joining us tonight. And, well, I guess in August, when it actually goes into dry dock, we're going to have a whole new round of questions for you. Beginning of August, end of August?
Don't know yet.
Oh, that's right. It's water and weather dependent, right?
Well, no, it's there's 3 ships ahead of us for that dry dock. So it depends on how the work proceeds for those 3 ships. And
season.
And then there's seasons and weather and all kinds of things. And you got to be able to roll in this job.
Well, thanks for your time tonight. I know you guys are super busy. And like I said, we'll definitely have you give us a play-by-play whenever it is in August that it gets into dry dock. We are going to move on now to the guys. Let's get over. We just talked about the Kidd. Shane, what do you want to talk about at the Buffalo Naval Park?
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on there.
You guys have been open for about a month now, right?
Yeah, we opened in, I think late March. We were going to open, and then the weather was still kind of bad, so we delayed it a week. So we've been open roughly since March 30th or 29th or something. But the weather's changed now, so we've been cooking. There's you can see more people coming down. The big thing, there's a lot of major projects that are always going on, and the biggest one was the Talos missile. So we got the Talos missile on board, the missile and the booster on board, which is something very proud at. That project was about a year and a half. Getting it, as many of you know, from South Bend, Indiana, getting it hauled here, getting it cleaned, painted, restored, and then actually getting it craned onto the USS Little Rock. So that was one of my big projects for April. We're doing a D-Day event. So I'm working on, it's the 80th anniversary of D-Day. So I'm working on like a memorial plaque for our garden area, which is all that greenery that people see in that photograph. So that will have to be up and ready by the 6th of June. There's. I'm trying to go through in my head the project list going on, but so there's, I'm seeing an upswell in visitors again, or not visitors, volunteers, which is great. Some of them may be on tonight. So, we got someone working on all of the blueprints for the Little Rock. I have someone working on the blueprints that we have on site for the Sullivans, to kind of do a first level processing. So at least we would know, looking at the outside of the folder, what's in the folder. So that's how the first level processing will go. So at least we can just go through in a cabinet and just see what it is without actually having to pull it out and then read it. A lot of people are jacked up about this proceedings thing that I've been doing, this ready reference for proceedings, the proceeding magazines. So I have some volunteers on that, and that's really been enjoyable and is borne fruit so far, which is nice, getting all of these articles collated, indexed together. Right now we have the Croaker, we have a working party that's here with the Croaker. All right, so that's maybe 7 to 10 guys, sub-vets, that are doing some work on the Croaker for this particular week. Then in 2 weeks, we have the working party for the USS Little Rock guys, and that's about 12 guys for the week. So yeah, a lot of activity starts around this time, and right up until mid-November or so. So a lot going on, yeah.
Shane Stevenson, curator at the Buffalo and Erie County Naval and Military Park, New York. Check out their YouTube channel. Search for Buffalo Naval Park, and their content comes right up. You can also check out their website, buffalonavalpark.org. And you guys also are pretty active on Facebook too, right? I don't have.
Yes, I'm certainly sure of that. Yes,
yeah,
I do not have anything to do with that or Instagram,
but you'll see Shane on the YouTube channel. So definitely check out the content that they've got going on there. And let's see, I want to move on now to the USS Slater. And John Epp, curator, USS Slater in Albany, New York, because John wanted to talk about this.
Well, I'll talk about that in just a minute, but
yeah, but not now.
Yeah.
If you want to go back to the picture of the ship, that's the money maker right there.
How about that?
Yeah. Okay.
Which one?
Go to the World War II. Go to the World War II part. That's an old picture. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so we've been open for about a month as well, just over a month. Busy season will start next month through the summer once school is over. We just wrapped up our spring work week. We had just around 24 volunteers from across the country living on the ship for about a week. Completed various projects, mainly painting projects.
Wait. 24 volunteers living on the ship for how long?
A few days to a week.
Wow.
Depending, yeah. Okay. We'll have a fall one as well. That's typically a little smaller. Spring is our more popular one. So they wrapped up a bunch of painting projects, some electrical work, and they actually got our spare SQS-4 sonar in the post-war sonar room operational. And we were actually listening to boats go by. That was pretty cool.
What? That is awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Oh my God.
It wasn't no active sonar. It was all passive. We didn't want to it's striper season, so we didn't want to anger all the fishermen that were in the river. Yeah. But so that was cool to hear. It's post-war, but cool nonetheless.
So when you say post-war, John, do you mean 1990s post-war or 1980s?
No, like late 40s, early 50s.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So we have 2 SQS-4 sonars on board. One is in the sound hut on the Flying Bridge. That's from the destroyer escort Lauser. And then we have another one that was purchased by a donor, I don't know, 15 years ago, I believe, 20 years ago. And he was actually here, and he was working on it.
Nice.
So that's cool. And then if you want to go to the poster, go ahead. There we go. So Slater turned 80 years old on May 1st. Yeah, just like she finally joined the 80-year-old club, like you guys. We had a very small celebration, but we are planning a much larger celebration on June 15th. It's National Destroyer Escort Day. We are one of the only groups that celebrate it now, unfortunately. So we'll have a small ceremony in the morning, but in the evening, it's a Saturday, at 5 p.m. at the Albany Airport, there's a hangar called The Hangar at 743. It's an entertainment venue. They have World War II aircraft. We're going to have the Satin Dolls. They're like a 1940s reminiscent group. So it's going to be almost like a USO type show. We're hoping to have around 200 people. The more we can get, the even better. We're looking at around 24 to 30 members of the Slater family. They're going to be traveling up here for this.
Great.
Family of Slater crew members. So it's going to be a fun night dancing. Tickets are $80 for the 80th anniversary. You can purchase them on our website, ussslater.org, if you're interested. We do also have an option if you are unable to make it, but you still want to support. You could purchase a ticket for a volunteer, and we can drag some of our volunteers to the event. So it's all happening on June 15th.
Dress is business casual, military attire, or 1940s theme.
Yeah.
Copy that. Let's see. John Up, curator, USS Slater in Albany, New York. Check out the YouTube channel. Search for USS Slater in the search bar or the website, ussslater.org. And I'm assuming...
Oh, speaking of the YouTube,
go ahead.
We are just a couple subscribers away from 5,000, which is exciting. So if anyone's not subscribed, head on over to our channel. We do have a fun video going up tomorrow, another one of our work vlogs, but we're inching closer and closer to getting one of Slater's 16-cylinder engines running. So it's been looked at. We got the lube oil on the ship.
Wow.
It's ready to go. Doing some final checks. I won't power the props or anything, but it will run for a few minutes and just be a cool little fundraiser thing.
Ooh.
You have to, like your other engine startup from, I think that, what was that, like a year and a half ago, maybe?
Yeah, that was the 8-cylinder service generator. This will be an actual propulsion engine.
That video, I don't know, you guys have a couple 100,000 views on that video, hopefully. I mean, because will it run? Will it start? Videos do very well on YouTube. So if you guys are close to doing something like that, I hope you get the same kind of attention.
Anytime we do something with engines on the ship, they blow up.
I'll bet you do. Yeah.
This is just going to feed the reactivation crowd.
Mm-hmm.
In theory,
Ready for
if there was enough money and knowledge, Slater could get her engines going, get underway, but it'll never happen.
John, not to interrupt, but I do remember at Hinza last year, we were standing, I think, on the fantail at the stern of the ship, and someone brought that up. And I think it was the YouTuber Drakennefell who said, well, all the experts are here. Like at that one moment, everyone was there who would run those things.
That would be incredible. If you want to support the USS Slater's efforts to get all of her engines running.
No.
You heard it here first. All of the engines running.
To be clear, Slater will never get underway under her own power. 99.9%.
If you want to see that happen, you heard it here first. ussslater.org. Check out the website. Check out the YouTube channel. Search for USS Slater in the search bar.
Yeah, so I always, because, two of our vessels are steam. So your engines in almost all DEs, or all DEs are what, diesel electrics, or?
Many were diesel, many were steam.
Oh, so there were DEs that were steam as well, fire room, engine room, turbines.
Yeah,
but not
Slater's purely diesel.
Okay.
So it would be more like our Gato submarine with 4 16-cylinder diesel.
Yeah, it's more or less the same engine. Yeah,
I've
it's a
read
16-cylinder Cleveland.
I've read about that, how responsive DEs could be just because they didn't have to build up steam. They could just engage and go.
Yeah. Only, startup time was much shorter, which was good.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to, let's get through this.
Is Bing Crosby going to be there, John?
Moving on to Connor Kilgore aboard the Alexander Henry icebreaker at the Transportation Museum of Thunder Bay. Go ahead, Connor.
Okay, so we haven't opened yet. We are opening. We made the announcement about 2 weeks ago. We will be opening on May 22nd, 2024.
What's the temperature in Thunder Bay right now?
Ooh, it's about. Hold on, let me double check. It's sitting at around 14 degrees at the moment, but we're getting at the 17, 18, 19 range. So we're getting pretty close to summer temperatures now.
Well, that's okay. Wait, that's Celsius. So you're talking about 68, not quite 70 degrees Fahrenheit.
14 Celsius is 57 degrees.
Oh, I was way wrong. Okay, all right.
I think you double it and add 32. Is that?
Yeah, I thought it was something like that.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway,
it's
sorry to
getting
interrupt.
warm.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's getting warm. It's to the point where you don't have to wear gloves on the ship when you're doing work, which is amazing. But we do have a lot of things coming down the cards right now. One of the big things is we got our approval for hiring summer interns or summer students for this year. So if you are in the Thunder Bay area and you are a student either of high school or university/college, we do have some 8-week summer placements available. And we have openings for 5 at the moment, as well as 4 staff for the season. Not 4, 3 staff for the season. Like permanent for the whole year or the whole season. So other than that, though, we have a lot of projects on the go. Our maintenance team is doing a lot of electrical work as well as doing the prep for finishing the paint work on the hull. We got everything right back to the stern done, so they just need to finish up the stern basically as soon as the weather allows. Our online shop is also online, and soon we will be doing shipping, and so that will be announced very soon. So keep an eye on our social medias for that.
You were also doing work on the website. Is this website address accurate?
It is accurate. It's still not up. It's all
right. Hold on a second.
Right there.
Hide that. Okay.
But I know some of you within the museum ship world are collectors of challenge coins. The Alexander Henry now has its own challenge coin. So let's see if that fits in there. There we go. And these will be going on sale both on site and you want me to do it again?
Yeah, put that back up at the camera. Sorry about that. Yeah, there you go. That's better.
Yeah. So 1959 to 1985, which is when the ship was in service, and these coins will be available both in our online store as well as our gift shop on site. And, we're just getting ready to go. For me personally, the big project is I'm working with our marine archaeologist, which has joined us recently, on some new projects. We're going to be doing some cataloging of artifacts. And our big project is going to be our cargo holds, something I've been waiting to do since I joined. We have 2 cargo holds, which are filled with stuff, and we've got to go through it all and see what we can do. One of the cargo holds has a perfectly accessible staircase that allows us to get in there easily. We would love to potentially use that in the future for events or more display space, but we've got to go through everything first.
What sort of stuff do you have in the cargo hold?
Well,
I mean, is it junk or is it like really cool?
Okay, so the museum that had the Henry before us did put items in that cargo hold, so there are some things in there from the Kingston days. So we've got to look through that and see what stuff potentially we have to return back to them. But there's things like there's spare parts. Like we have multiple pieces. Like we basically have enough spare parts to build half an engine. We have random boxes of things that we haven't opened yet, and weirdly enough, we have an anchor in there, which we believe is for the stern. We don't know why it's in the #1 cargo hold. So there's a lot of stuff, and we've got to go through it all, figure out what's junk and what's valuable.
Always sounds like a pretty cool job.
Yeah, well, that's why we brought in the experts. So I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be my big project once all the interns are trained and the tourism season fully starts.
Connor Kilgore, curator at the Transportation Museum of Thunder Bay, highlighting the Canadian Coast Guard icebreaker Alexander Henry. Although it's not active right now, eventually you'll be able to check out tmtb.ca.
Yeah. Actually, I was just reminded because multiple members of our museum are watching this tonight. We do actually have some artifacts in the cargo hold that date all the way back to the 1700s from shipwrecks in the St. Lawrence River. So we've got to go through all that too, apparently. So
it's a good safe place to store all that stuff in the hold of an icebreaker. Yeah,
well, some of it's off-site as well. So we just got to go through everything.
For those of you that aren't aware, Connor Kilgore is also one of the administrators for the Facebook group Museum Ships. It's always a good, if you have not joined that Facebook group, I strongly recommend you check it out because they've got at least 10, maybe even 20 posts a day, all focused on museum ships. So check out the Museum Ships Facebook group. Anything you want? Go ahead, Connor. Sorry, I keep cutting you off.
Yeah, I will like to say Museum Ships Facebook group. We have grown exponentially since everyone decided to get up and go to dry dock this year. This time last year, we numbered probably around 60,000. And at this rate, we are expecting to potentially pass 100,000 probably by the end of the summer because we're getting 400 people every 2 days. We're going pretty quick.
All because the New Jersey and the Kidd decided to go to dry dock.
The Kidd, LST 325, the Texas, a few European ships. A few European ships have been going, and we've gotten a lot of people from places that you don't really imagine museum ships are, but there are museums. We've gotten some people from Thailand and Turkey, which do have small but thriving museum ship enthusiast communities, and they've been discovering us and they've been joining as well. So and Polish, a lot of Polish people recently. So again, our group is international. American ships do make up the majority because they're the most famous, but we welcome museum ships from all over the world.
Excellent. That's pretty exciting. Don't know why you get so many Polish, but hey, the more eyes, the better.
Hey, it's all the guys from Kobe Bricks. Look and see what new ships.
Yeah, they're coming for new ideas.
Well, I want to definitely say thanks to you, Tim, and thanks to Parks for joining us tonight. The play-by-play of getting the Kidd out of her cradle and underway is pretty cool. So one last time, I want to remind you to check out their YouTube channel, USS Kidd Veterans Museum, or the website, usskidd.com. And also want to thank the viewers. I've said it before, but I always want to say we can't do this without subscribers and viewers. So I definitely want to thank you for your comments tonight. I had a lot of people watching the story of the Kidd's travels down the Mississippi River. So I definitely appreciate your attention and support museum ships any way you can. My name is Ken Stano from the YouTube channel History X. Thanks for joining us tonight. Hope everyone has a great evening.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks.